Anand,
Hello, sir.
hey. Whoa, man, you've got full bandwidth going on today.
Yes, sir.
You've got a great internet connection going on.
Yeah, actually, on college it's great.
Oh, okay.
The connection is great.
Yeah, okay. Well, I didn't think I would be. I didn't think I would say this, but I'm glad you're back in school.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. Subham, how are you?
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, there he is. Then Anand, one thing for you. If my voice is coming out of your speakers, then we'll get feedback through your microphone. Do a quick check to see if you're hearing me in your ear in your ear versus on
Yeah,
your.
actually.
Or another way that we could be getting feedback is if the microphone that's being picked up isn't the headset, the isn't your earphones, but it's the one on your computer. I'm not sure. Either way, like there's an echo loop or there's a feedback loop.
Uh, there is no section.
So I'll let you. We can test that out a little bit while we wait for some other folks to join. All right. Harshini, welcome.
Hi.
Hey, Harshini. Hey, good deal. Well,
Hi.
yeah. Harshini, it turns out when we don't meet at like 12:30 a.m., you guys can actually join. It's nice. Well, we're going to wait a couple more minutes for, I think, at least a few other folks I know that are going to join. While we wait, I was going to say this is a good time to introduce a couple of people, but maybe let's wait just a couple more minutes because that way you won't have to do introductions twice. So, while we're waiting, Nuno, if you're there, you're on mute, just in case you said something and I didn't respond. The other thing to do is I'm going to paste a link to the meeting minutes in Hangouts. Please do go into the meeting minutes and add your name to the attendees list.
Yeah, sure.
Nice. All right. I'm going to bring up the meeting minutes while we're waiting. There she is. Harshini. Lee is here. All right, Nuno is here as well. I'm going to record him even though I can't hear him. Okay. And then hopefully everybody else, Anand and Subham, you guys have got the link to the meeting minutes.
Yeah, sure. Actually, okay.
Okay. Okay, in the Meshery Slack channel, I just posted a link to the meeting minutes as well. So If anyone doesn't have access, let me know. But otherwise, we'll get started. And actually, I'm going to ping Sako just because he's got a PR under review and he's been making some commits. So Anand, just a few minutes ago, Sako had posted some new commits to his mesheryctl PR.
Okay. I will do that.
Okay. Okay.
I think for Sako it's pretty early.
Yeah. Yeah, he I don't know. I figured with as much as you guys had to suffer, he can get up early.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Okay, good. All right. Well, we're a few minutes in. I think Sako will join. I do want to make sure that Harshini has been involved in the community for a little while. But Harshini, I don't know that you've been able to join a call before, so it's great to have you aboard. Do you want to take a moment and just introduce yourself to Anand and Nuno and Subham?
Yeah, okay. This is Harshini. I'm from Lumina Networks. So I am working currently on Meshery adapter for NSM.
And for the uninitiated, NSM is...
Okay. Network Service Mesh.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. So maybe we'll post a link to it in the chat. So for everyone, Network Service Mesh had been recently inducted into the CNCF, I believe as a sandbox project. There are a number of different participating. It's a how do I say this? It's a service mesh that's slightly service provider oriented in its use cases, and has a number of networking centric companies contributing to it. So Lumina Networks being one of those, Cisco being another, and a few others. And so Harshini, you've just joined Lumina Networks just recently, right?
Yeah, I just joined as a full-time employee this month.
Nice. Okay. And so we're going to talk about some of Harshini's efforts on the new adapter. But also, first time on the call is Subham. Welcome, Subham. Do you want to introduce?
Hi everyone, I'm Subham Ram. I'm from India, and currently I'm a BTech fourth year student, and I love working on Python, and I'm good at Linux also, and I like DevOps and ML. These are my skills on which I would like to contribute, or I would like to increase my knowledge and experience to this Meshery team and community.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it's good to have you on the call. You and I and maybe Anand have some more catching up to do about some resources for you to just help kind of ramp you on some of the tech.
That will get.
Nice. Okay.
Yes, sure.
Let's go back into the meeting minutes here. And I think we've got a number of topics to discuss. Some of which are not as interesting considering who's in attendance today, so we'll focus on the things that you guys are focused on. So I guess maybe before I go much further, one of those items was for Nuno. Nuno, can you hear me? I'm going to ping him in Slack. I can't yeah, it looks like you're there. I see you typing. Yeah. Anyway, we just can't hear you on the call. Oh, okay, got it. Yep. So Nuno's detained for about 10 minutes or so. So let's go and very good. So Nuno's actually earning his paycheck, so that's good. All right. Anyway, so great. So Harshini's here. Subham is here. Welcome. By the way, to the extent that it's of interest to any of you, today is the proposal deadline for talks that people want to submit to KubeCon. I can't remember who I was talking to. It might have been Sako, where Sako's been saying that he's preparing maybe to present Meshery and some of his work at a local meetup. And so he's in San Francisco now. But I think that same opportunity, or I would give you guys the same encouragement that as you get comfortable with the project or any of the technologies in there, between service meshes and benchmarking and Go and Python and Kubernetes, which is another focus point, let me know. I can help you either find a venue to speak at, or help you create some materials to speak. Or if you're submitting a talk, I can help review the abstract and try to get it in. The more folks that get involved with Meshery, the better. The better the tool will be. And so there are, and I guess actually on this topic, maybe for Subham, it said there's a couple of resources to point out. So I think the last 6 KubeCons or so, I've given talks there. Some of them have been, a few of them have been. Some of those have been on service meshes, or a number of them have been. And so I posted the talks and the materials there and the talk recordings. So feel free to, if those help, feel free to leverage those.
Thank you, sir. I will look to it.
Nice. Okay. Very good. Okay. So we'll review Nuno's draft post here in a little bit. Here's before we jump in. So like Subham, this is potentially, or Anand, potentially for you, or potentially for other people that you know. So right now, when the Meshery site is kind of split between a couple of places, and so let me point that out. It's certainly one of the places that you're familiar with, which is layer5.io/Meshery, and this is the most concise overview of the project, and it lets people get started quickly. And it's where we point most people. That's this URL, layer5.io/Meshery. As we move the project forward, we'll continue to represent the project there for sure, but we'll also begin to look at building out a site dedicated just to the project, and that would likely be at this domain here, meshery.dev. So if you go to meshery.dev today, it just redirects to the same layer5.io/Meshery. And so my point here is, as we look to build out a new project site, this is a real opportunity for anyone who's interested in doing that. The site itself, to run it efficiently, as we are the rest of the open source infrastructure, it's probably something of a static site. Either using a framework like Jekyll, or potentially a framework like Hugo. But there'll be a fair bit to building out that site. So if you're interested, or if you guys know other folks who are somewhat more front end oriented and are interested, certainly speak up. And so another note in general is that, yeah, go ahead.
Sure, sir. We'll see.
Nice. All right. I'm putting down the...
Sure, sir. There are some students that are also interested in this. Well, good at front-end.
Nice. Okay. That's great. Yeah, thanks, Anand. That's good. That's great, man. In general, there's another general kind of update, and that is, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with things like a CLA or a DCO, these stand for Contributor License Agreement or Developer Contribution. Now I forget what the DCO is. It stands for Developer Contribution. What is it? Developer Certificate of Origin. Wow. Anyway, both of these are sort of legal documents that say, hey, when you're contributing to a project, like if you're contributing to Kubernetes or if you're contributing to Istio, just 2 projects, for example, that they would require that you sign a contributor's license agreement. And there's a little bit of tools that go along with signing a CLA. The Meshery project isn't using a CLA, but it has now started to use a DCO, and really it's easy to comply with this requirement. You'll see that when you submit a PR or when you contribute to Meshery, I'm going to bring up this pull request as an example. You'll find that GitHub will be enforcing that people have signed their commits. Let me see if I can find an example of a commit that's not signed. So if we see like a red X right here, this red X means that this commit that I didn't sign my commit. And the way that you sign commits is commit signing is a Git-based thing. You can, if you're familiar with doing commands like git add, and then you do like a git commit, and maybe you'll give it a message, my commit message, that if you also do a -s, that means sign off. And so what that'll do is when you make your commit, Git will add a sign-off message. It'll say, I think something to the effect of signed off by whatever email address you've got associated with your Git configuration. And so I'm pointing this out just to the extent that it's not really a big deal, but I just thought I would point it out to the extent that people aren't familiar with signing off in Git. You'll certainly don't be afraid of it. I mean, you'll certainly get instructions as and when that comes up. So in this case, I didn't sign my commit, like I was saying. So I can go here to details, and Git will give me instructions on how to fix that. And so what I've included in the meeting minutes is an alias that you might want to consider in your global Git config. Your global Git config is usually found in your user's home directory. So you can go in there and potentially update it to alias to auto include like signing whenever you're doing a commit. Who all uses an IDE like Visual Studio Code?
I am using.
You are? Yeah.
I have used one. Sometimes I use Visual Code, not always, but I have used it.
Nice. Okay. Then I'm going to give this example. I think that that this is maybe important enough, or maybe new enough to some of us that it's worth looking at. I'm going to bring up my Visual Studio Code briefly, and just show a quick example of how you can tell Visual Studio Code to auto sign your commits whenever you're doing them, because a lot of times you're making changes in files, and as you go to make that change, you'll come over and type in your commit message in here, and when you do, this is the point by which it needs to be signed. And so if you go into the preferences or the settings within Visual Studio, just as an example, you don't have to use Visual Studio, but within here, I think if you type in something like git sign off, it'll bring up the configurable behavior here that it's not checked by default, but you can enable this to say always sign off enable the sign off flag for my commits, and so it'll auto sign for you. So just a bit of FYI, I guess. If anybody has questions on that, feel free to hit me in Slack, because we can walk through it. It's or even what that means, like what does it mean to sign a DCO? What does that mean? So we can talk about that. Anyway, moving on. So Harshini is here. Harshini has already made some significant progress on the creation of a network service mesh adapter. So Harshini, you're saying, hey, you've been able to compile Meshery. You've been also able to create an initial Docker image for the NSM adapter, and then even to the extent that you can see the NSM listed in NSM and the adapter listed in the Meshery UI, so that's fantastic. But you were just describing an error that you're running into, and that error has to do with pulling down the latest NSM release from GitHub. So I'm going to take a moment here just to explain what's happening for Subham and Anand. And I think, Sako, I'm not sure how much time you've spent in this area or not, but it's maybe worth noting that in Meshery, I'm going to bring up Meshery's architecture, because certainly for me, it helps to look at pictures. So this architecture, I think you've probably seen it before. It's on the website. I'm going to try to, well, it's not going to work very well. But very simple architecture, Meshery itself. And by the way, Nuno, this is a good, if you're able to hear this, this is a good note for you as well, that I think the easy path with Meshery is to run Meshery on Docker, like on your local machine. And for the purposes of performance testing, I think that makes a lot of sense. You might want to run your load generation tool, Meshery, you might want to run it outside of your cluster. So that way you're not consuming resources in your cluster, and you can, eliminate one variable as you go to do your performance test. And that's probably the easiest way to get Meshery up, is to run it on Docker. That said, you can also run Meshery on Kubernetes, and there is a Kubernetes manifest file out in the repository. It's actually on the site itself. So if you go to layer5.io/Meshery, when you come down, it has this very quick getting started commands, and this works great for getting started on Docker very quickly. There are also commands here to deploy on Kubernetes. This deployment, we haven't spent a lot of time focusing on, because we've been focusing on the use case around performance testing so much. So this motion of deploying on Kubernetes, I think we need to spend a little bit of time on to make it as pleasant and quick of an experience as what you find for installing on Docker. So I mention that because in context of what Harshini is doing, she's creating a new Meshery adapter. And it's for, it's for a service mesh that doesn't have its icon up here yet. So Harshini, we need to take a note, maybe in the meeting minutes, we need to go add the NSM logo in a couple of places.
Yes, it was adding in two places, right? I tried to add it, but I was not able to get it.
Into the document itself?
Yeah, the logo should be displayed while deploying the mesh, right?
Right.
So I was trying to do that.
Oh, okay. And so that logo would ultimately be bundled as part of static content inside of Meshery, inside of this binary. So that's it. Okay. So we can dig into that as well. Anyway, so the issue that you'd been having is that in creating an NSM adapter, every time that an adapter, okay, so when you're using Meshery as a, I think I've got Meshery running here locally, so I'll pull it up. So everyone I think is familiar with the fact that you first go to configure Meshery like this. You give it your kube config, and the second bit of what you do in Meshery is to tell it which adapters you'd like for it to use. This whole flow of initially setting up Meshery, by the way, Sako, is something that I want to eliminate. There's a happy path here of making the experience even more pleasant than what Nuno has experienced already, and that is that in many cases when someone deploys Meshery, if they're doing it in a place where, like, let's say I'm doing it on my laptop. I've got Docker running on my laptop. I also on my laptop have my kube config file. Meshery should just automatically look for in the user's home directory for their kube config file and assume that that's the one that they want to use. So that way they don't have to come and configure it, because most of the time that's probably the one they want to use. The user shouldn't have to come in and select which adapters that they want to use, because Meshery should know the fact that they've deployed one or more adapters, and the user shouldn't have to come in to connect Meshery to its own adapters. Meshery should just know that. So there's some improvements that we can do here. So I'm saying that in context of what Harshini is saying, which is she's adding another adapter. And one of the issues that you're having right now, Harshini, it sounds like, is the logo isn't showing up for the new NSM adapter here.
Yes, the logo which was showing here. So while you add the adapter, the logo is showing, right? So that one.
Okay.
Okay, the default logo is showing for NSM.
Got it. Okay. The other thing that Harshini is working on is just like every adapter will support the installation of that particular service mesh. So in the case of, I'll just use Istio as an example, you would invoke this operation to install Istio on your Kubernetes cluster, and that's running. You'll get feedback from the adapter. The adapter will perform the task and send a response. In this case, it's saying, hey, it couldn't deploy Istio, and we don't need to go troubleshoot this, but point being is that when Meshery does this, we don't compile in a copy of Istio into the Meshery binary. The Meshery binary is right here. Right? We don't build Meshery with a copy of any of the service meshes. Rather, at runtime, when I click this and say go install Istio, Meshery will reach out to GitHub, grab the latest copy of Istio, and then perform the installation. And so, Harshini, I'm using your efforts as an example for everyone else to understand the project as well. That Harshini is writing this NSM adapter, and it needs to perform the same function when she goes to ensure that installing NSM works. She's writing code to have Meshery go out and pull down from GitHub. And Harshini, the error that you were running into, it sounded like it was a file system permission issue.
Yes, but I don't know whether, initially, before the error, it showed that the mesh client could not be created.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that happened before you even, okay. I see. All right, so I'm taking a note here. So this is one of those things that you and I should probably spend some one-on-one time going through. And if we can end early today, we can use this time to do it, because I suspect that'll rat hole us for some time. So so very good. So hold on to that thought for a moment. Let's see if we can get through these other topics and come back to identify what's going on with that connection. file system. And by the way, all of you are welcome to take notes as we go. So feel free to edit, edit the doc. Okay, one of the other ones that we were going to discuss is Nuno is with us now. So Nuno, I don't know if you heard any of what I was saying a little bit earlier about Meshery being deployable on Kubernetes as well. Oh, I see. Okay, wait. I think he's... You know what? I think he just sent a message. Maybe he's not quite with us. So, okay. All right. So then moving on. Sako, how are you?
Sorry, just arrived.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Okay.
But
Sure.
what I do with Sako. Sorry.
No, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Actually, Nuno's, yours might be somewhat easier. And so, yeah, no. So, Nuno, one of the things we were just walking through was the notion that Meshery is deployable on Docker and Kubernetes, which is good. Which is one of those. And so I don't know if you had heard me kind of discuss Meshery's architecture and kind of its flow earlier.
Just in part. Sorry, I was in and out all the time.
Oh, okay.
The thing is, like, I'm using currently the Docker deployment of Meshery. So
Okay.
I use the K3D like I showed the last time,
Yeah.
and then I use a Meshery start that will deploy on Docker.
Nice. Okay. Makes sense. So for those of you who were on the call a couple of weeks ago, Nuno took us through a demonstration of running K3D, which is a lightweight version of Kubernetes, on within a Ubuntu VM that was running within the Windows Linux subsystem 2, I think WSL2. And then did us the good favor of writing up a post. And so Nuno, I'm gonna share a different window and say that this is how that post begins to look. And so so this is fantastic. So Nuno, awesome. I'm assuming I actually don't remember how much we spoke about getting that blog posted on Layer 5. Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So I'm looking forward to this. This is gonna be great. I made some tweaks. You don't have to accept them. The reason that I sent them back your way is, one, so that you can decide whether or not you like them and augment as you will. But two, so that your user, so that you can initiate a PR and receive credit in that way, if you will, for contributing to the project.
It's okay. It's for the community.
Yeah. And then.
But I will have a look about the blog maybe during my train travel now back home. The thing here is like what I wanted actually, if you could add some inputs, was more like where I spoke about Meshery slightly, let's say at least at the introduction. I really wanted maybe some more consistent. I don't want to make like I base myself on the blog, or kind of the blog post, but the getting started from Layer 5 Meshery website.
Yeah.
So the comments are almost the same anyway, so you will find it. So this first part, actually it will be like a 4 bonus parts, but it's like a 4-part blog. So this one just gets really started with Docker, actually inside WSL2 with Ubuntu, and then you have Meshery running, and I think I put Grafana also in also, sorry, yeah, exactly, with Docker. So So I didn't, let's say, link them for the time being, because then I need to. I'm not into, let's say, this part, right? You know me right now.
Yeah.
So I'm more like about the configuration and how we could like easily set up like a full Meshery. Um, how do you say? Yeah, setup or environment quite easily. So as you can see, the first bonus that I really want to go now is more about Meshery configuration, which was the few steps that I tried the last time. So this time it will work because
Uh-huh.
last time I was using localhost, which doesn't work with WSL2. So the blog posts show you how to make it work even with WSL2 actually. Um, so I saw just quickly your comment about like maybe stating a little bit more strongly. I think that it was more for WSL2, or like it works within WSL2. Uh, so it will be nice if the others also, once I do the PR, it's okay for me, but if you could try it out also from your machines and see maybe what are the subtle difference, maybe from a full Windows perspective. I'll try it also, but maybe from Mac or from a Linux. It will be nice to see what are the differences. Maybe none, hopefully none.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And is that of what you were just saying, Nuno? It was that trying out the sort of next iteration of the blog post, the Meshery configuration one on other systems. Okay, that wasn't necessarily saying, hey, go attempt to try out WSL2 on.
No, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. For me, it's like all my blog posts. Normally, the only common base that I have is working within WSL. First, it was WSL1. Now it's WSL2. So yeah, it's really the main goal, uh, to show that it could work. That's all. So
Okay.
it's like bonus kind of. But all the commands, at least Mac and Windows, Mac and Linux, sorry, they should work exactly the same.
Right.
For Windows is, yeah, because it's PowerShell, maybe the way of getting IPs and stuff like that will be different, of course. But I think if someone is really strong at PowerShell, which I'm not, they that's why I use WSL2, by the way. But they could try to, yeah, just add the control parts. But all the rest, all the Docker commands, all the Meshery commands will really be the same, which is really good. That's why I like these, let's say, platform agnostic kind of
Yeah.
of the tools.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to take a note inside the meeting minutes actually about well, not only the blog post, but also the notion that a new, additional platform support could be noted within the Meshery docs themselves for WSL2, based on the your
Yeah.
yeah.
Again, that's just me, okay, or me blogging. I tend to blog exactly what I'm doing, so I'm doing it from WSL2. So that's why I like to always state that, okay, this is from a point of view of WSL or WSL2, and especially WSL2 because it's running in this utility VM. Some networking is, I know that the team is working hard on it, but for the time being, we don't have the luxury of running, let's say, localhost, so we need to really pinpoint the IP of the utility VM running, so we can access it from um, the browsers that are actually inside Windows. So we are no more, right? We are no more inside the VM. We are outside the VM, kind of. So the whole setup, I don't. That's why I said like I don't want to enter too much into WSL2 because it will be like a lengthy blog post. So the goal was really to get Meshery working first. So pop up. That was okay. The configuration will be okay. So now I just need to actually write it, but it's doing fine. And then the two other bonuses, if you can just get back to my.
Yeah.
One is CNAB, I'm sure about this one, but the middle one, I don't remember now what I wrote.
Maybe, oops, yeah, so it's a little.
Let me see. Oh yeah, adding a new yeah, perfect. Adding a new service mesh to the mix, and the goal will be like how can you add into the configuration where you see ISTO, what are the other tools? Console and another one. Then you have also Octarine.
Right.
That will be then the goal. So yeah, if you just go down. So right now we have 3 service meshes that we can try out in the playground. The bonus 2, because I know that you are working on connectors and adding new service meshes.
Yeah.
Also, it was like, okay, how can you easily, hopefully, or add it like a new service mesh when maybe your Meshery is already installed, let's say, and
Right.
you don't want to maybe reinstall it or something like that.
Right.
So it's like how can you update it, kind of, and show the power that it's how you can plug it easily.
That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, that's fantastic. And actually, the last one here is actually maybe something that we should try to catch up on in a one-on-one or a little bit more in depth, because.
Yeah, definitely, because we have 2 passes right now. We can go Docker app and do that's what Girish wanted, I think, and it makes sense, makes total sense. It's easier also to move from Docker Compose to Docker app, because it's like a switch, and then you start working with the variables inside and stuff. But then I'm myself more a user of Porter right now, which is another CNAB compliance tool. And Porter, the way I use it, it's more like replace the commands that I'm running for now, like Meshery start or KDA create and stuff like that, and but it's on one go, and you will just do a Porter install and with some variables if you want, but then it's done. And that's the power of the CNAB actually. Also, it's the way of really bundling all these technologies a bit together.
Nice.
That's why I wanted maybe to discuss with you first, to see what makes more sense also for Meshery in the long run. Docker app has this also kind of real advantage. Porter is doing it now. The Docker app will like publish to the Docker hub.
Yeah.
So the control will be directly there.
Yeah.
It's great.
Hey, actually, point of curiosity for me, when I'm sharing, can you guys continue to see my video, or is it just the document that I'm sharing? Do you still see me? I mean,
I clicked on the user side. A small message.
Okay.
You could see Lee.
Okay, good. So I'll just remember that, not to make any weird faces while Nuno's talking or anything. Just yeah, Nuno. One way of thinking about it is that it doesn't hurt for there to be a Porter package as well. Or like I'll say this: the Docker's chief marketing officer just subscribed to the Layer 5 newsletter yesterday. There's a potential Docker partnership to happen. I mean, outside of just being kind of Docker compatible and things. I don't know. I think most of you guys maybe have seen, but at last DockerCon, which was, I guess, just a couple of months ago, an early announcement of an integration of Istio into Docker Enterprise was announced. It was maybe a smaller part of the announcement, and so my point of saying that is that there's some possible interchange and partnership kind of to go with in this context. I'll say along with that, many of you are probably painfully aware that I've been trying to wrap up authorship of Istio up and running. And so Docker is considering kind of some marketing around that, because I ended up using Docker Desktop as the example Kubernetes platform in that O'Reilly book, and so I think they're taking kindly to that. So anyway, point is like, for a number of different reasons, I think Docker app is probably a must. That doesn't mean that supporting Porter as well or having an alternative package doesn't, there's no harm there. So.
Yeah, but I think for I started with my Synapse journey started actually with Docker app and the Athens project for the Go modules back in 1.11. So I'm not a Go programmer at all. By the way, I don't develop at all. That's the message, because I heard when I left the last time all the questions. So I'm not a Go developer at all, but I tend to try to help the community more on the back end, how to get started, so the developers get their hands like not too much dirty about the technicalities or launching something, and they can just start developing and start doing what they know best.
It's critical. I mean,
Docker app is a really great tool, and it enters the it enters the mindset of Docker. So everything is like logic. If you know a little bit of Docker, like I'm far from Docker Captain, but I know a little bit of Docker. Then when I Docker app, it just felt like, okay, I kind of yes or no what I can run. So
so Nuno, do we need? I guess understanding that, do we need do we actually need a synchronous discussion, or is that something that, I don't know if you're inclined here, is that something you might take a crack at?
Yeah, I'm definitely getting a crack at this, for sure. Now if we could just have like a synchro, like a small half hour.
Okay.
On another, I don't want to also consume all the time now, but it's more like, if we could just have a look together,
okay,
how it goes, and maybe even do like maybe a live session, something like that, just to see the first the first prize, and then get it. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, we will. So Sako, switching topics. So you've, in terms of the state of Meshery CTL and our transition from Meshery to Bash script, where do you think we are, or like how?
I can do a quick demo and we go through it.
That'd be great.
Well, yeah.
Please.
Sure. Let's see.
So for context, for Harshini and Subham, today, when the experience that you've had with Meshery is you'll use Meshery on the command line, and I guess this is for Nuno as well, you'll use Meshery on the command line, and it's a bash script. And that's all right, but there's the improved approach there is to rewrite that bash script into Go and basically move away from Meshery as the command and move over to Meshery CTL and give the user more of the kubectl, more of the Istio CTL, more of the kind of the native Go, even for Docker. It's not Docker CTL, but it's Docker written in Go, and it's a bit faster and a bit more capable. And so Anand has been looking into this, and Sako's been slinging some code towards this. So that's what he's going to demo.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So basically, I incorporated the changes in the PR that you requested.
Okay.
So just for the folks that once the PR will be merged, you can come directly to the Meshery CTL folder, and once just the prerequisite that make sure that Go is installed, everything is fine, and then you can just do go around, let's say, without compiling, go around main go, and you will see the commands. So basically took out the cleanup and put inside the init. That was one of the changes that happened. So in this case, if you do the start, to start the Meshery, and you will see the message, and the messaging all now is in the constant that could be changed.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's here. So, and once you start, you can do status. That's showing status, and logs. Can show the logs. And if you don't know the command, you can do always -h help. This is by Cobra framework that we are using, and for the init, you can see it's installed, but now I'm gonna just delete the core compose. So basically, in all of them, there is a function called for the init, which is going and checking for the Docker compose. I didn't add it for each if statement, but just in the beginning of the command, it will just check, make sure that it's meeting the prerequisites, which is gonna come inside as a separate function, as you can see. And that is also the cleanup part I will show. So basically, let's get rid of this guy first. And now we don't have Docker compose. So if I run again init, sorry, I think okay, I will need to have a look into it, but the let's see, there is also like as a flag cleanup.
Okay, right.
So yeah, I will need to, 1 second, is it on? Okay, yeah, I think I will need to check this part once, and
but
it was working.
yeah, no, sure. But maybe just to recap, because like the flow here, I think, like one of the things that I think that Nuno honestly enjoyed about the project, and he enjoys about other projects that do the same, is the simplicity by which, you know, like the time to value. How hard is it to get stood up and running and kind of get something that's actually functional and usable, and we're trying to refine that sort of core flow, if you will, and yes, sort of in the process acknowledging that, like, hey, this works pretty well if you're running on Mac or Linux, and then outside of that, you know, it's going to be a different set, and we want to cater to that other 20% as well, or whatever smaller percentage that is. But just in trying to get that core flow very well. Actually, the vision here is something like the curl command that you originally used to download Meshery, it's downloading mesheryctl, and mesheryctl from there, if you don't have Docker or you don't have Docker Compose, assuming that you're doing the Docker installation path, right? It is capable of not only identifying the fact that you're missing those prerequisites, but taking care of them, but you know, performing an installation on your behalf, so that you can just get up and going. As a matter of fact, I mean, it can be the case that if you can go from executing a curl command or the three sets of commands that we give you on the website, that you would execute that, and from there you'd sit back and eventually, if you're on a Mac, your default browser would just open with Meshery running. Like you wouldn't have even typed Meshery start or Meshery init or like it just auto performs those actions. Now, I don't know that. I think as we go through that, we want to discuss like, is that what people would expect? Is that weird? Does it throw them off? Is it really truly helpful, or is it maybe taking too many steps on their behalf? Hey, maybe you shouldn't try to install Docker Compose on their behalf, but maybe ask them, and then when they say yes, go ahead and go for it. Like some of these things I think we can go through and debate, or make a decision on. But as easy as we can make it, I mean, the way that Meshery as a utility is going to really be found valuable by people is in no small part at all through this user experience. And that's because of the features that it does today. You can go install Istio by yourself. You can go install NSM by yourself. You can go generate some some load against those things. But this makes it easy, and it brings a better experience, and it packages it. And so, like, acknowledging that that's why people come to it in the first place, I think just collectively as all of us go to work on this, that we want to hold high that on a high pedestal that user experience and making sure that it's so Sako, thank you for this, because I think that's directionally aligned.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I guess I break something during the cleanup. I will just update it, but pretty much that's it. Things. The only thing is missing right now for the Docker latest version. I haven't added that one, and right now it's putting inside the .meshery directory. Should we go to the home? To the home?
Wait, I missed that part. So you were saying, hey, for what are you putting in .meshery versus .home?
So currently the Docker Compose file, downloading and putting in .meshery.
Yeah, I think that's it's appropriate. Over time, we're going to have more than one file there. As we move to a system wherein today, if you guys are when you use Meshery today, you go through. You do your initial setup and you tell it, here's my kube config, here's my adapters, and here's my pointer to Grafana, here's my pointer to Prometheus, and okay, fine. Actually, honestly, I want to eliminate much of that. Meshery should be capable of searching for the user's kube config. It can go look for the default one. It also doesn't need, why would the software itself need you, the user, to tell it where its own adapters are? Like, we just need to work through those things. And so my point being is, part of the experience today to me is frustrating because I'll be using Meshery and then I'll close my session, I'll close my browser, and then later on I'll open it back up. And then Meshery hasn't persisted to disk the configuration that I gave it. It doesn't remember that I said, yes, use this kube config, and that experience needs to change. And part of how that will change will be ultimately when you start the Meshery container image, it should in the future, very short term, like mount your local file or mount the .meshery folder such that then we can at least persist a few like application settings and configure. And so the long answer to your question, Sako, I think that we're going to find even more use out of the .meshery folder going forward.
So we should put in the home directory, yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, the hidden .meshery folder inside of that user's home directory, I think, is common practice. You could argue that later on, if the tool had a lot more functionality, and people are just, if they're taking and running this inside of their cluster and they're saying, wow, I really like this tool, I want to actually do performance testing ongoing. I want to do performance testing ongoing because I have different versions of my application over time. I'm making changes to my cluster. I want to make sure that I'm still getting the same or better or whatever performance. Maybe I'm upgrading Istio, and so I want to do another performance test. So I want to run this tool ongoing. I don't want to just run it on my laptop. I want to deploy it in the cluster. And I think at that point, you could reflect on your question here and say, well, hey, look, some administrator signed in as Susan. Susan, the administrator, signed in, and she deployed this utility that is intended for everyone that uses the cluster to be able to use, or every other operator to use. So at some point, you could make an argument, Sako, that Meshery config files, the application files, that .meshery folder, probably should move out like to etc / conf or like user lib something like you might want to put it outside of the user's home folder because it's intended to be a system, a piece of system software that everybody might interface with. So yeah, I mean.
Okay, so yeah, that's
right now.
mesheryctl itself will be in the being just the global path, but just the configuration the same as kubeconfig can be in the home directory.
Yeah, I think at least for now, like for that use case that we're really going for, where people are deploying it on their laptop, they're deploying it on top of Docker. And later on, if they deploy it as this cluster operation tool, it may not make it makes sense for Meshery to store some of that config outside of a user's home directory. So somewhere else that it makes sense that Meshery would store its config inside of etcd, actually inside of the key value store. For at some point, it probably makes sense to have a Meshery CRD. A Meshery custom resource definition, and store the config somewhere else. So anyway, we don't have to figure it out right now, but my point being is, I think for right now it makes sense to keep it in the .meshery private folder. Later on, when we're really considering Kubernetes deployments much more earnestly, we might want to begin to make use of the fact that there's a key value store always present in a Kubernetes environment, etcd, and use etcd as a location to persist Meshery config. Okay, cool. So we just went past the hour.
Sorry, I have to rush. I have a train to catch. So
yeah.
Great to talk to you, and catch you very soon.
Very good, Nuno. Yeah, I'll reach out.
Okay, thank you all. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.
And then, so Harshini, I know you're kind of left hanging on the error that you're finding, and I think that your suggestion that hey, maybe the initial Meshery client isn't being instantiated, and so Sako, if you have some time, we might want to do Harshini a favor and look at her. She has I don't know if you were here when we were talking earlier, she has an initial version of the NSM adapter that she's written. And so Harshini, do you have some time to be able to share your screen and maybe share the environment? And
Yeah, just give me a minute. I will do it.
okay, all right. In the meantime, while Harshini's bringing that up, Subham, let me and Anand, let me say this. There's, I think he's Italian, a guy in the community, Mauricio. You've not met him, obviously. He hasn't been on this call, but he's reached out as a student who's doing, as a software engineer / student who's doing a research project on service meshes in general and trying to compare them. And he's very interested in not only Meshery, but also just the landscape on layer 5, which right now just contains a lot of facts. It doesn't contain a lot of opinions and perspectives. And so I'm going to facilitate an introduction there because ultimately we do want to have a lot of very helpful perspectives on hey, there's going to be thousands of people and thousands and thousands and thousands of people over the next few years coming and saying, well, I've heard service mesh like 50 times now. Apparently it's time for me to deploy one. I give up, fine, I'm gonna do a service mesh. Which one should I use? Because there's a few choices, and why should I use it? And that's in part what Meshery is initially trying to help solve, is like, hey, letting people quickly stand them up and play with them and understand them. And over time, it's gonna help them manage them too. But the tool isn't the only thing they need to look at. They need to look at a landscape. They need to like be able to quickly digest what's different about each of them versus the next. And that landscape tends to, or needs to be, much more evolved than it is. So I'm going to try to make an introduction to this other gentleman, Mauricio, and see if we can really carry the landscape forward. It's being referenced a fair bit, and has been in different communities, but it is lacking in terms of really carrying a perspective. Like it doesn't say that one project is more powerful than the next, or one is easier than the next. Those are sensitive things to say. Projects and people and companies get offended. So it needs to be done fairly. But if it's not done, the landscape is only so helpful. People still need to go somewhere else to get, what they really want is an opinion. And we should give it to them, we just need to be fair when we do. So Harshini, I'm just wasting time until you're ready. So.
Yeah, I've shared it.
Okay, yeah, it's there we go.
So we have to go, so we will catch later.
Oh, okay, very good. Yep, thank you, Anand. Talk to you soon, Subha.
Yeah, have a good day, sir.
Bye.
Anand, talk to you soon, Subha.
Yeah, sir.
Okay, so so when
So I will later, so I also have to go.
Sure.
Okay,
Bye, sir.
Bye.
bye, Subha.
Bye everyone.
Bye.
bye.
Thank you, sir.
Are you sharing screen? I don't see it.
Yeah, she is. I see it.
You see?
Sorry. So were you able to see?
I don't.
I can.
You
Sako's
can see.
still
Yeah,
looking.
that's probably my. Oops.
Do you want her to try to stop sharing? Okay, yeah, she's gonna stop and start again, just to.
I'll just downtown.
Okay, and then Harshini, did you stop? Because actually, I saw it before, but now it went away.
Sorry, I didn't get you.
Oh, I saw your screen sharing earlier, but now it has gone away.
Okay, I thought so. I have done that, and now I thought to share the log in the terminal. So just give me.
Okay.
So this was the error chiming.
Okay, it's saying that you're sharing, but the screen is still coming up. There we go. I can see
Oh
that.
yeah, just came.
So Sako, she's working on the first implementation here, and Harshini, do you recall the particular method that's
Sorry,
being?
I didn't get you.
Do you recall the particular method that's being invoked that's causing this?
I think it's the error that is permission denied. Can you run it via sudo or something? I think that's permission issue. Can you run it with sudo? Like,
Sorry, I was not able to hear you.
can you add sudo in front of the command you're running? Hello?
Yep. Yeah, I can hear you, Sako.
Yeah.
And so, Harshini, in
Sorry, I think some network issue.
I will write to her.
Okay, now I'm able to hear you.
yeah, you know how we were talking about the file system permission issue? One of the suggestions that Sako is giving is to put the command sudo in front of, well, yeah, I don't know. See, this is kind of interesting because I think the command that you're running here is like meshery start, I think. And so Meshery is starting up all the containers, and as it starts up the NSM container, it tries to download the latest release of NSM, but it can't save that NSM artifact, that NSM package, to your, yeah. And so I think if you cancel out of this, and instead you run sudo meshery start.
Okay. So I think some network issue, so I'll just reconnect it. So,
Okay.
I think it's just fine. Just turn off the sharing screen.
Yeah, here I'll turn off my I'll turn off my camera to see if that helps too.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. All right. Are those Slack messages coming through?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'll try doing that now.
Okay.
Just give me a minute.
Okay. And Sako, if that works, it's a bit odd in so much as a code change inside of that NSM adapter. It seems like a code change inside there might be needed only because you know what, maybe it's maybe the Docker file for that NSM adapter hasn't mounted the home folder, and so it doesn't have a file mount, or it doesn't have, and maybe that would manifest as a permission issue.
It's come up after the NSM episode. NSM it's working fine.
Right.
I haven't updated the meshery.yaml file. I just updated the Docker file. So when I tried to do the command, I was not getting the NSM option. Since I didn't add it in Kubernetes part, I just added it in the Docker compose.
Yeah, I
Um,
think we can try to simulate and see checking the error or it's
yeah, Harshini, if you're able to maybe share the Docker Compose, I, um, I guess, does that even make sense that would...
yeah, just assuming if you can do as an issue the steps you are running and version and stuff that you are running into, but I think you can try to simulate and see.
Okay, I would forward uh, the Docker Compose file in the chat. Just a minute.
Okay.
But have you tried with sudo or?
I didn't try running sudo for Docker Compose, right? Docker Compose command.
So how you were getting the error? So what you were running? I guess meshery start in shell script or?
Okay, hi again. I mean,
Hey, Nuno. Yeah, Nuno's back.
Neil, I can help you.
So,
I'm on the train, so that's why it might be quite noisy right now.
so Harshini, probably, yeah, one of the quickest tests to do. Very good. There's the Docker Compose file. Okay. In the chat. But yeah, to Sako's point, like one of the quickest tests to do is to try to run, is to, try to start Meshery with elevated permissions. And so,
Okay, I'll just modify the Meshery YAML files. I'll just add these and then I'll try running it.
The YAML files shouldn't be changed actually. That's.
so
I don't think.
well, so Harshini, what system are you developing within? It looks like it's a Vagrant VM.
Yes.
Okay. And the user that you sign in as to be inside the shell on your Vagrant VM is what?
It's the a normal user, not with any permission.
Oh,
Like
okay.
once we do Vagrant up, it just shows up.
Okay.
So I don't think any permission with that.
Yeah. If you are you able to SU to root?
Okay.
Or-
In the Vagrant or
In the Vagrant, yeah.
yeah, just give me a moment. Yes, I was able to do SU.
Oh, nice. And now, if you do the Meshery start,
But actually, I am running the Meshery in my local machine.
okay. Oh, okay. So you're running Kubernetes in Vagrant.
Yes.
Okay. And then your local machine is what?
So my local machine is Ubuntu.
Okay. And then the Vagrant VM, is that also Ubuntu? Just a different VM? Okay.
Yes, they are Ubuntu.
Okay. And two different machines, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so Sako, part of the routine that a Meshery adapter will do is to download the service mesh's latest release. And so when as each adapter spins up, as each container spins up, I believe it goes out and tries to download the latest package, and it needs a place to store that. I didn't write that code, but I'm assuming it stores it to the user's home folder. And so that particular container may not be.
It should be all in inside that Meshery. Let me check.
Okay.
Meshery YAML. Yeah. Okay. There is. Yeah, that's in Meshery YAML. I see all the adapters in that Meshery folder. That Meshery YAML file.
Okay.
And the one that you're talking about is the one that Harshini shared, or the one on the one currently in GitHub.
The one currently in GitHub.
Okay. So Harshini, are you able to share the Docker file that you're using for that particular? So the Docker Compose file that you shared is the one that you're running for Meshery itself, but then for your NSM adapter image for that Docker container.
Okay. I'll just share the Docker file for the NSM adapter, right? I'll share it in the chat.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
So 1 second. Adapter. Well, Meshery layer fine. Adapter. Meshery HDL. Okay, that's for NS, because right now the one it's Docker Compose. 1 second. Downloads and use is that one. No, that's the one. That's the one. Is it the same? Because I don't.
Right. Yeah. So if we use something like the Istio adapter as an example.
So I didn't get through the problem. That's you tried Hashimi now with sudo. It still problem exists, or hello?
Yeah, I'm just modifying the meshery.yaml file.
Yeah, no. Have you tried with running the same with just Meshery start with sudo, or?
No, I haven't done that. I just do Docker Compose every time.
No,
Just to see the logs.
you can do Docker Compose. It's fine, but just add sudo in front. Let's see.
Yeah.
Just or go sudo su and run all this stuff with, just at least eliminate the permission issue.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Now, sorry. So after modifying the meshery.yaml file, what should I execute? Sudo meshery start. That's it.
yeah, or sudo mesh restart. Like,
Okay. Uh, so still, I was not able to see the meshery NSM.
are you getting the same error?
No, it's like I was not able to see the meshery NSM
Oh,
name in that.
oh, inside of the Meshery UI.
Not no, actually, on doing sudo meshery start, uh, like it says that the adapters are up to date, and so there I'm not able to see the meshery NSM.
Oh. And then of the update that you just did to the compose file, was that update to remove the Meshery adapter or the NSM adapter?
I did it in the Docker Compose, and also now I did it in meshery.yaml file.
Okay. Actually, I think the test maybe is to add the NSM adapter into the compose file. I think pretty much like you had it when you shared in the chat. And I guess so. Sako, the compose file that you shared, is that just verbatim from the repo?
So that's a command. By the way, I fixed init part 2. Meanwhile, so yeah,
Oh.
that's when like command file like mesheryctl, let's say, when you do start the docker compose file which is downloading, that's this file inside.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And then docker compose, you're running this YAML file, which is inside all the images you see.
And actually, Harsh, you need to one thing to do, to the extent that if we're not able to figure it out shortly, is to push your code to a branch on the NSM adapter, and then that way we can try it remotely as well.
Okay. Okay, I would try to do that.
Yeah, and since this is a safe place, or is there is that an activity that you're comfortable with, like creating a branch and pushing to it?
Not exactly. I have just worked on GitHub only on the initial commits of for Meshery NSM. I haven't worked on GitHub.
Okay, yeah, oh, very good. Then I'm glad I asked. So maybe we can help save you some time, just because it can be pretty confusing, actually. So right now in your environment, by the way, are you using? Okay, anyway, in your environment, if you're on the command line, if you go to your NSM adapter, or you've cloned the Meshery NSM repository locally, and you've written code and made changes, from within that folder, I'll put a couple of commands into Slack that you can run to create a new branch, and then a command to push your code to that branch. And even if the code doesn't work, that's fine. It won't. It'll just be. It'll be made. It's just like sharing the code with us, so to speak. It won't necessarily mess up the.
So actually, I haven't completed the portion fully. I just added a part of code to download the NSM repo. That's it.
Okay, so yeah, in the past you did a git clone like this, right? You did. So I think inside of Slack, if you can see it, in the past I think you probably ran git clone, and then you made a bunch of file changes. So now if you do something like run these commands, that I'm sharing in Slack, git. And Sako, feel free to correct this if you think it should be done differently.
In Slack?
Yeah.
Okay. Git add dot, yeah. Oops. I guess just the order, like git checkout second, and then you do git add commit push, pretty much it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're saying, hey, you might want to check out your branch first, and then.
Yeah, if you want to add stuff before change, but yeah. And after you change, you do add, then commit, and then push.
Okay.
Yeah. Whenever you do change. Yeah.
Whoops. Okay. Yeah. I think it makes sense. I think that makes a lot more logical sense. I think they both. I think even if you're making commits on master, as long as you. And I think they both work, but I hear what you're saying. So.
Yeah, just for the beginner, for her. That,
yeah.
Once you create your own branch, just whatever, once you do changes, add, commit, push, that's, you should have to iterate. Yep.
So,
That should be it, I guess.
so okay, create a git add.
It's
Oops. So this would so in this I need to make the changes, right?
Yeah, when you're inside of your Meshery NSM folder, at that root level folder, yeah, is where you would run these commands.
Yeah, I just executed it.
Oh, okay. All right. And if we go to, so maybe I'll share in the meeting. I'll share my window. So as I navigate to GitHub, I go to Meshery NSM. If I look at the branches in the UI on GitHub, there's a master branch, which all of the repositories have. and there's a new branch that you just created, and it's called alpha. And so since you created it, and now we can see it, which is good. I don't know that your code got pushed to it though. And so it might be that. So Saka, are you saying I did a git add asterisk? Are you saying do a git add period?
Yeah. Just I think post should be fine too. At that, yeah.
So Harshini, you don't need to do the git checkout command again, but I do think you need to do the git add dot command, and then the commit command and the push.
Okay.
Okay.
So, but I have the changes in another folder.
Oh, okay. Then that's the issue. You'll need to just copy those either move or copy those changes from the other folder into your the Meshery NSM folder.
Yeah, okay. I will do that.
Okay.
So also I think when you create a branching, I think having the username would be nice. What we use also at OpenGoWhat's.
Oh yeah. Oh okay. Sure. Yeah.
That
makes sense. So.
Yeah. For example, Sako MWS, you use GitHub username / the future name that you're and something like that.
Oh okay. So yeah. So.
Okay. Okay. So now I have pasted it. So now I need to do.
You know what? Yeah, you might want to just run all of the commands one more time, actually.
Sorry, git.
The git.
Push, right?
Well, you probably if you do git checkout -b, and then maybe Harshini -m /alpha.
Okay. I have. What's this? Okay, I just pushed the code, I think. I executed the last command git push.
Nice. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay. And when you did the git push, did you? It was git push origin, and then this time did you do harshini-m/alpha, or was it just alpha?
Okay, I just didn't do that. I just use the command git push origin alpha.
Alpha, okay. And that's fine. And that's fine. Although that's fine, except I don't see any new files up here though. So like the part where we're doing like the git add, I don't know that it has added has like flagged your changes for uploading.
Okay.
And so let's see.